ARP. Please help us welcome Channel 8 news anchor and tonight's moderator, Rod Fowler.
All right, thank you, Lance and Elena. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this debate for Lincoln's 53rd mayor. Like they mentioned, we are live from UNL in the new Don and Lorena Meyer studio. It is quite impressive. We do want to thank the journalism department and AARP for their help on this project. Can you believe we are only a little over a week away from the May 2nd city election? Let me formally introduce you now to our candidates. Suzanne Geist is a Republican. She is a former state senator who was elected in 2017. She recently resigned as state senator to focus on the election. And leirion-gaylor Baird is a Democrat. She is the incumbent mayor and was sworn in 2019. We thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you, Rod.
Here's how it's going to work, okay? You're each going to have a 1-minute opening statement and then 2 minutes for closing statements at the end. We're going to start with questions that have 2-minute responses from each of you, and then we'll graduate to 1-minute responses from the questions. We should mention that the candidates have not seen any of these questions ahead of time. We will allow 30-second rebuttals when needed. Sound good? Any questions?
No, sounds great.
Okay, we did a coin toss earlier this week with members of both of your campaigns on who starts the opening statement and the closing statement and who goes first with questions and stuff like that. So let's get the ball rolling. Leirion, we begin with your 1-minute opening statement.
All right. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mayor leirion-gaylor Baird, and Lincoln is where my husband and I are raising our children. This is our home. And making this city the best possible home for your family and mine is the mission that has inspired my service in city government for 15 years. I am proud of the way my administration has delivered on our shared priorities during my first term through record-setting investments in public safety teams, in infrastructure, and in our parks, trails, and libraries that grow our quality of life. Each day we're making Lincoln a better place to call home. And thanks to a growing economy, we've made these investments at the same time that we have cut the city's property tax levy each year that I have been mayor. When reelected, I will continue to invest in our public safety, hiring police officers, firefighters, and paramedics, invest in our streets, support local businesses to create jobs, and continue to make Lincoln the quality of life capital of the country.
All right, thank you, Leirion. Suzanne, your 1-minute opening statement.
Sure, thank you. My name is Suzanne-Geist. I'm honored to be in this race, and May 2nd, you will have a clear choice of who you want to lead this city. I have a proven record of action with consensus. My opponent likes to surround herself with people who agree with her. I have a vision for uniting the city of Lincoln, and my opponent has been divisive in that role. My opponent believes government is the answer, but I believe government is an answer. I'm also known for standing with law enforcement and their family. My opponent is known for kneeling with protesters and abandoning their families in their greatest time of need. I am a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. I'm concerned about the trajectory of this city, and that's why I'm in this race.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to begin now with our 2-minute questions. I'm going to ask you both the same question about your opponent. And we're going to start with Suzanne. Talk about a couple of decisions Leirion made during her time in office that worry you if she should win this election.
One of those decisions would be the raising of the levy 1 foot above what FEMA requires, and that would be in the floodplain. And the reason that that's a concern is it's raised 1 foot across the entire floodplain, which if we're going to have affordable housing and increase the floodplain levy 1 foot across the entire plain, then we necessarily will increase the cost of housing. That would be one. I would say another would be one to the choice of not supporting 100% law enforcement during the time that there was unrest in the city streets. I know that has been a concern of many of them, and one of the reasons that law enforcement reached out and endorsed my campaign.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. Leirion, what decisions did Suzanne make as a state senator that worry you for if she should win this election? You have 2 minutes.
Our community's priority and my top priority is public safety. And while a state senator, My opponent supported LB 77, a measure that was opposed by the Lincoln and Omaha police chiefs because it would put guns in the hands of individuals without common sense background checks and safety training. Our police chiefs in the two largest cities in Nebraska said this would not only make our communities less safe, it will make working conditions for our courageous law enforcement officers less safe. That is very concerning. I'm also concerned that she chose to sign a petition that says it's okay for businesses to fire our LGBTQ friends and neighbors just because they're gay. As we work to compete in a 21st century economy, we have to be open to business for everyone. You can't just be open to business for the straight members of our community. Also, she has voted to raise taxes on essential items like groceries and medicine. Those laws that would have increased and put consumption taxes on essentials were testified on by our state chamber of commerce, representing both the state chamber and the Lincoln chamber. They called those bills economic development for neighboring states. Her policies at the state are too extreme for Lincoln. They are too extreme for this community, and they will not help us compete for 21st century talent as we work to grow and support our local businesses. And they will not help us keep our local police officers safe as they work to protect our neighborhoods and our families. And they don't keep our community open to everyone.
All right, thank you, Larry. As I said, we're going to put rebuttals in whenever you need them. We just didn't want to do it for each question. Would you like 30 seconds?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. I'll say that I am a supporter of the Second Amendment. I was not supportive except of the compromise amendment of the current legislation that was just passed. I also disagreed with the methodology of forcing businesses to for the government without consulting businesses to make decisions for whom they should and should not hire. It was the methodology for which I was in opposition. And I will also say I've been a huge supporter of cutting your taxes, not raising your taxes.
Leirion, do you want 30 seconds now, or you want to hold it, or you want to go?
She voted repeatedly to raise taxes, in the consumption tax, to make food and grocery more expensive for our working families. She's worked to deny our LGBTQ friends and neighbors their rights, not just signing the local petition to undo our fairness ordinance, but also to deny them access to healthcare services. And when it comes to thinking about public safety in our community, we also have to look at how we become prepared for the climate hazards that we face. And we updated our flood protections for our community based on new rainfall data. Our FEMA maps haven't been updated in decades, and this work that we did to secure flood protections for our community is absolutely important going forward into the future.
All right, thank you both. Let's move on. And again, just let me know. I want you folks to be able to let voters know how you stand on certain issues, so we'll put some rebuttals in there if needed. Let's talk about crime, though, for a second here. Suzanne, in your campaign ads, it says that basically crime in the capital city has gone up. It's dangerous out there. Leirion, your campaign says it's not that bad, and in fact, the crime numbers per population are actually better now than in many years past. So I guess the question is, what should voters believe? Leirion, you're first with 2 minutes.
Public safety is my administration's top priority, and by every measure, Lincoln is a very safe community. Our safety statistics bear that out. In fact, violent crime rate in Lincoln is approaching a 30-year low, despite the fact that we've grown by 100,000 in population during that same period. And we've invested in our public safety teams, providing them the training, equipment, and fleet they need to have rapid response times, and helping to make sure that our communities continue to be safe as we grow. The only reason that this continues to be front and center in this campaign is that my opponent and those who support her, primarily Pete Ricketts, who has funded much of her campaign, have continued to barrage our community with ads that paint a scary picture of Lincoln. They paint a picture of Lincoln that is unrecognizable and untrue. They are trying to scare people into thinking that there's a problem in order to vote for change. When I'm reelected, we will continue to invest in our public safety teams, including our firefighters and our emergency medical response, which form the vast majority of calls to 911. I'm proud that this community is such a safe community. We continue to earn top rankings across the country for public safety, economic recovery, and quality of life.
Suzanne, you have 2 minutes to talk about crime here in the
Sure.
capital city.
You know, the thing is there are elements of crime that have gone up in our city. Some of those are robbery, murder, car theft, arson, the smaller crimes, the things that don't really affect people. You may look and see that those have gone down, but these are the things that affect the lives directly of people in our community. And these are not just my words. I've been out knocking on doors and listening to what constituents say about feeling unsafe, a young woman who's afraid to let her children go out after dark, or a mother who has been accosted in broad daylight. These are things that directly affect whether people feel safe on our streets or not. There's also been incidences of shots fired, 70 plus rounds down in the rail yard. We have hardly heard a peep about that. The other thing we need to consider is how many officers do we actually have on the streets right now? From 2019, the beginning of the current administration's reign, to today, we've progressively lowered the number of boots on the ground. The number of officers who are patrolling our streets is down today from 4 years ago and has continued to go down since my opponent has been in office.
All right, let's move on to, you want 30 seconds?
Yes, I
You
do.
both have 30 seconds. It's an important topic.
Sure. Again, people continue to feel unsafe because of the ads that you have been airing for months. And if you're concerned about guns and shot in our community, then you can't vote for legislation that puts more guns on our streets. We are adding officers every year in our budget, and the number of folks on our police force fluctuate every year based on retirement and when our police academy trainings begin. That is something that any police chief will tell you.
And Suzanne, you have 30 seconds too.
Yes, and I understand that I maintain the balance between supporting the Second Amendment and also looking out for public safety. And I also will also contend that the number of officers who are on the streets has continually decreased from 2019 to 2023.
All right. Let's move on to question number 3. I should mention that some of our questions tonight are coming from our wonderful viewers out there. We asked them to submit, and boy, did they some good ones that our panel picked. Talking about COVID, Deborah and Jason asked, what, if anything, would you have done differently with lockdown measures and masking, for example? Suzanne, you're up first for this question. You have 2 minutes.
I believe the first few weeks and months of COVID was an unprecedented time, of course, for our community. So I have not spoken negatively about the measures that were taken initially. I do believe that it was a bit unfair for businesses to have to police who was masking in their establishment. I believe in personal responsibility, and I think if we're going to have a mandate, which is given by the government, then every person should take their own personal responsibility, not have businesses have to police who can and cannot use the amenities of their business when they need every dollar that they can get in that situation, because businesses, so many of them were shut down. They needed every penny that they could get. I am not a fan of government mandating much of anything, certainly not masks and certainly not locking down facilities. Though again, I understand that those first few weeks and months, we didn't know what we were dealing with. Going forward, that would not be a practice that I would recommend or that I would even enforce. I am very much about personal freedom and the freedom of private business to run itself in the way that it sees fit.
Leirion, looking back, as Suzanne mentioned, who could have thought that this was going to happen worldwide? Looking back during the COVID pandemic, what went right and what would you have done differently looking back?
We have weathered extraordinary times together, and I'm so proud to live in Lincoln. I am so proud of our community's response, and that includes our pandemic response from the city, where we've partnered with schools, with businesses, with universities, with our incredible physicians and hospitals to keep Lincoln one of the safest places in the state of Nebraska, if not the country. Looking back at the data, we have one of the lowest mortality rates from COVID-19 in the state. And when we asked a Johns Hopkins researcher to run our numbers and compare us to over 700 counties across the country with similar demographics, we were in the top 10% for lowest mortality rate. We got schools open in the fall of 2020. We helped businesses stay open. There was never a stay-at-home order in Lancaster County. And we have been the #1 city in the country for unemployment recovery. When we received our historic ARPA allocations, American Rescue Plan funds, we had a blueprint for how to deploy them to support our recovery and renewal. I had convened an economic recovery task force, and we began immediately to implement their recommendations. We provided rent and utility assistance and mortgage assistance to our local businesses to stabilize them and help them focus on getting back on their feet and hiring more employees. We have supported our nonprofits and our tourism industry. Lincoln has weathered this storm gracefully thanks to the collective efforts and temporary measures. This is the anti-mask candidate right here, supported by anti-maskers. That was not the solution that was necessary. Our data bears out that the temporary measures like masks and helping to work together to protect our community got the job done during COVID.
Suzanne, would you like 30 seconds for both of you, or you want to move on?
We can move on.
Let's move on. Our next 2-minute question here, response. During the George Floyd protests here in Lincoln, some of the protests obviously were peaceful. Some got violent. There were riots. There was a set curfew put in place and millions of dollars in damage. Leirion, looking back, would you have done anything differently?
The killing of George Floyd moved the nation and was devastating for people all across America, and especially for our police officers who are proud to put on their badge and uniform and keep us safe. I worked hard during that moment in those extraordinary times to support the incident command led by local law enforcement, and I'm proud of the work that they did to both facilitate our peaceful protesters and protect their First Amendment rights, and to quell the violence that erupted in the immediate aftermath of George Floyd's murder. We quickly restored peace, and we have worked to bring the perpetrators of the violence to justice. I am proud of their investigative work. They have worked to bring people to justice who caused, the bad actors who caused the violence in our community. And in the aftermath, we have continued to review our policies and training so that we are prepared going forward to do even more to keep our officers safe in those extraordinary circumstances should they ever arise.
Suzanne, no one knows what the future holds, but if this should happen again, something similar, how would you handle it?
I believe, number one, I would probably have the assistance of the National Guard. I would also allow law enforcement to make sure that no damage occurred to businesses, to individuals. I know that Lincoln sustained almost 10 times the amount of damage that Omaha did, and Omaha was able to call out the National Guard and support their law enforcement with National Guard. I don't want to make light of the incident and the George Floyd incident, the one I'm referring to, at all. That kind of violence is of course not condoned in any way with any department and wouldn't be condoned by myself at all. I do, however, believe that when law enforcement is under, if I'm mayor and law enforcement's under my command, I will have their backs. I will make sure that they are protected. I will make sure that they understand that we are a team and that I have their interest at heart. I also believe that it's important that we allow peaceful protesting, But when that protesting goes beyond where it should, where they're damaging property or hurting individuals or threatening law enforcement, that's when it goes too far. And I would allow that to be prosecuted to the end of the law.
Are we good with that?
No, I
You
like
want
that a little.
30 seconds each? Go ahead. Leirion?
Your campaign continues to spread misinformation, and what I would like to clarify for the record is that I did reach out to the governor and ask for the support of the National Guard during those times, and Lincoln did receive it. And it was a collective effort from the sheriff, the state patrol, the National Guard, and our brave men and women of the Lincoln Police Department who helped protect our families and businesses during those moments of extraordinary unrest. The mayor is not in charge of the incident command. The mayor provides support to police officers and to those who are running the incident command. And that's how things were handled during that extreme moment in our history.
Yep. And one last 30
Just
second
briefly, and I'll excuse me, I will just respond that law enforcement has endorsed my campaign for a reason. And what happened, a large part of that reason.
All right, let's move on. Question number 5. Again, this is a 2-minute response if you need all that time. Geraldine asked, what can you do as mayor to reduce property taxes? In fact, do you have the power to do anything? And Suzanne, we start with you.
Property taxes are, boy, always the subject at doors, always a subject that people want to talk about. The property taxes are really only about 16% of the budget of the mayor. However, being transparent about the budget and being frugal with our with taxpayer dollars is of utmost importance. One of the things I think adds to some of the mystique of the property tax concern that people have is, and how it relates to the city, is it's very difficult to read the budget that's online. And I know my opponent, even when she was on the City Council, agreed with that because she tried to had an initiative for making the budget more transparent online. And that was back in 2016. To date, that's not happened. And so I believe it's very important for citizens to understand where their taxpayer dollars go, how much of it actually goes to the city, and where those dollars are being used. So in my once I'm elected mayor, that is one of the things that we will make a top priority, is making that budget transparent and making sure that we're using every penny of the taxpayer dollar in a frugal way. And when the economy and the citizens are asked to save their money or stretch their money further, as they are right now because the price of everything going up, then we as a city will respond in the same way, and we will tighten our belt.
So Leirion, getting back to, can the mayor really do much when it comes to reducing property taxes?
Mm-hmm. I have cut property taxes in the city levy every year I've been mayor, at the same time that we've worked to deliver the services that our constituents and residents deserve. What my opponent meant when she talked about 16 cents on the dollar is that the city's share of property tax revenue is only a small sliver. The vast majority goes to support our public schools. 60% of your property tax dollars go to support public schools. And where we have structural issues with property tax is actually at the place of her former employment in the state capitol. We are 47th in the nation in Nebraska in state aid to public schools. My opponent had 6.5 years to try to fix that problem and help provide relief for property tax, and she didn't get that job done. At the city, our budget is transparent and has won awards for decades from the Government Finance Officers Association for its excellence and transparency. And when I did a bipartisan initiative to create open data, it was not about the budget, it was about putting all city data online. Mindful of the taxpayer dollar and making sure that we get a big bang for our buck when we spend city resources. It's important to strike a balance that helps us invest the dividend from our city's growth in providing the services and response times that our constituents expect. We take growth dividend from our city budgets, and we make sure that we are continuing to hire police officers, firefighters, and paramedics. And her idea of hiring 100 police officers is way out of line with what our city budget even allows for. And I suspect that that false promise is part of why she has received the support of the Lincoln Police Union.
I think that's worth 30 seconds
I think it
extra
is.
for each of you. Go ahead.
And my response about hiring 100 police officers is that's how many we need. That I've not made any promises about walking in day one and hiring 100 police officers, for the record. However, it will be a continual front burner issue for me to make sure that our police officers, male and female, have all the support they need. They're working overtime. We have too few officers, and I am committed to hiring more.
And Larry, in 30 seconds.
I think everyone out there should continue to ask my opponent how she plans to actually achieve what she says she will do. How will she actually go out and recruit police officers in other cities herself? I don't think she understands that the job of the mayor is to be the chief executive of the city and to continue to provide a strategic direction and the support through the budget to get the job done. We have made record-setting investments in public safety and done work to make our police officers the highest paid in Nebraska so that we can recruit and retain the best and the brightest to our police force.
Okay, here's our last 2-minute question, okay? This is the most expensive mayoral race in history, more than $2 million, give or take, combined. Both of you received big donations from some big-time donors. The question is, who do you serve first, the donors or the people? And Leirion, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, my campaign is people-powered, and I'm fortunate to have support of thousands of community members. I have over 3,000 donations from individuals in every part of our community, while my opponent's campaign is being bankrolled largely by 2 families. She's received over $1 million from 2 families that are bankrolling her campaign, families that don't even live here. I am so proud of the work that we have done to earn this support. And one of the great things about putting in the effort to reach actual community members through small donations that have been adding up to help support our efforts to stay in City Hall is that you hear from people. You hear about their concerns. You understand their priorities, and you're better able to act upon them. My campaign is people-powered.
All right, Suzanne, 2 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. Yes, there are large donors to my campaign. There's also very small donors to my campaign, and hundreds of donors to my campaign. So who are you beholden to? Always beholden to the people who vote. Beholden to the people who agree with you and disagree with you. I'm committed, and have shown this in my legislative tenure, that I'm committed to working across the aisle to gaining consensus with those, whether they agree with me or not, to bring about what's best for the city. I've told hundreds of people, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. City business is city business. It's good streets, good jobs, good business, and public safety. We all agree on that. So serving that interest is what's of most importance to me, making sure that I get all voices to the table so we get good solutions to the problems that face our city, not beholden to a single donor or individual.
Are we good, or would you like 30 seconds extra? Go ahead.
Yeah. You can say that, but your record tells a different story. You've continued to put corporations above people, proposing and supporting tax cuts for the wealthiest among us, at the same time that you've voted to support imposing consumption taxes that disproportionately harm families with the lowest incomes, putting taxes on groceries and medicine. Please pay attention to your actual voting record.
And Suzanne, 30 seconds for you.
Yes, I would say please check that consumption tax vote, because it was one round so that we could get a specialist in to discuss how that worked. I've never voted for it since, though I love people who think outside the box, who try to structurally enable our system to be better, which was why I was at the table listening. So thank you for the opportunity to clarify that.
We're now to 1-minute questions, 1-minute responses. what is your plan to address housing affordability here in Lincoln? And Leirion, you're first on this one.
My plan is to continue to facilitate the growth of our residential housing supply at every price point. That helps take pressure off the market and keep prices affordable for everyone. We have continued to use our city resources and our state and federal funds to help buy down the cost of home ownership, supporting homes for the missing middle, and also creating an affordable action plan that helps target our limited resources in ensuring that no families are cost burdened in our community. We set an ambitious goal to create 5,000 new or rehabilitated affordable housing units in our community by the year 2030, and we are well ahead of meeting that goal. We've also worked to keep our existing base of affordable housing affordable by launching a pilot in the south of downtown where we are partnering with NeighborWorks and LES and Black Hills Energy to make improvements to our existing affordable housing stock so that we don't lose ground as we continue to build residential units at record pace.
And Suzanne, you have 1 minute.
Housing affordability is a huge issue in our city. And one of the things that causes the rise in unaffordable housing is overregulation. There was an article in the Omaha World Herald a couple of months ago now that indicated that 32% of new house costs are because of regulation. So one of the things that we need to do as leaders is make sure that we're not overregulating an industry that we're trying to make affordable. So that is one of the major points that I will look at when I become mayor. Also, understand that in the city of Lincoln, it costs for a median range new construction home $440,000. That's very difficult for a young married couple to afford a newly constructed home in Lincoln.
Kelly asked, what are your plans for improving Lincoln roads and transportation? And for this, Suzanne, you start first. You have 1 minute.
All right. I'm sorry, did you say
What are your plans for improving Lincoln roads and transportation?
Okay, in Lincoln?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is one of the things I've heard, number one, going door to door, is what are you going to do about our roads? One of the things we do is to make sure that we use any new streams of revenue that are coming into our city, for instance, casino revenue, to supplement what we're spending on our roads. It's important that this is a priority for us, and looking at every opportunity that we can in our budget to emphasize roads and construction, because it's one of the number one priorities as city government. And so I will make sure that we are taking in all of the revenue that we have that is directed towards roads, our wheel tax, our Lincoln on the Move, all of that, and making sure that that's a number one priority.
All right, Leirion, the future of our roads, 1 minute.
I think my record speaks for itself. We have dedicated a historic $211 million to both repair streets and build new ones to support growth in our community. Streets are so important for supporting our economy and growth as a community. As part of our work, we have implemented the Lincoln on the Move initiative and also created more value by bringing a package of $25 million in highway allocation funding that we got through the council with their support to increase the amount of funds we have for roads. And as mayor, I will continue to make funding for roads a top priority. We've also secured a historically high federal grant of $26 million to support a new multimodal transit center for Lincoln that will help give people choices and help relieve pressure on our streets. We are continuing to invest in electric vehicle for our city fleet, for our buses. We've launched and created a new pilot program for our scooters and our bike share, creating choices for how people want to get around our community.
Tracy asked, school shootings have parents, school districts, and law enforcement agencies on edge. What plans do you have when it comes to school safety? Are there policies you would enact? And Leirion, for this one, you get the first minute.
Yeah. We partner at the city. My opponent likes to say government should get out of the way, but really to be effective, government needs to partner. And we partner with LPS. We do tabletop exercises to practice with law enforcement and the team at LPS to keep our kids safe. We also address the root causes of crime and violence, investing in mental health services and behavioral services, both for adults and youth. And we have a Safe and Successful Kids interlocal agreement that helps support our community learning centers, providing safe places for our kids to be before and after school, making sure that they have the resources they need to succeed. These are the kinds of work that we do to help protect our schools.
Suzanne, 1 minute.
I believe in partnership, and I believe looking forward to SROs and expanding the role of SROs in our schools, whether that's high school all the way down to elementary. And those don't have to be full-time law enforcement. Right? Thinking outside the box, again, of satisfying a need with some individuals who are retired or former military. Things like that that keep our children safe, but may not be something that's going to be a high budgetary item, and certainly not something that we do day one, but something I will definitely partner with LPS on to talk about how can we do that effectively in our schools. I also believe mental health is a huge issue. That's why I sponsored legislation to establish mental health courts and keep people who have mental illness out of the correctional system.
I actually have a mental health question coming up here in just a little bit. Let's move on. Next question, what will you do to create good paying job opportunities in Lincoln, and what will you do to help fill those jobs, good paying jobs? And Suzanne, you're first.
Yes, good paying jobs is the lifeblood of growth in our community. Partnering with all of the resources that we have, and by those resources I mean our schools, our public, our private schools, community college, universities. We have a diverse, broad array of resources, meaning students, that we can introduce the opportunities that we have here in Lincoln that are available for those students, and making sure early on in their education they're aware of what opportunities are available right here in Lincoln, so that we can educate our kids and then partner with the business community so that they have resources that are right here in our community. We keep people from leaving the state and actually even leaving the city, and availing ourselves of all of the partnerships that we can make with business and with our school systems.
Larry, in 1 minute.
Yeah. The city's job is to create the conditions for businesses to flourish, and to that end, we partner with the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. We provide half the funding for the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development that helps our local businesses expand and works to recruit new businesses to our community. We also deliver the infrastructure necessary to help our growing community continue to expand and create new opportunities. We are putting in new streets, we are expanding our wastewater capacity, and we are searching for a second water source to support the growth of our community. And then we also have made historic investments in workforce, something we hear our employers say is their top priority. We have invested more than half of our American Rescue Plan dollars in supporting local businesses and developing career pathways that connect job seekers to jobs that are in high demand. And we work to make Lincoln a welcoming community, making sure that we know that we are open for business to everyone, and that everyone who wants to work in Lincoln has an opportunity here.
Jamie asked, what do you think of the plans that were approved for the 22-story skyscraper in downtown Lincoln? And Leirion, you get to go first on this minute response. The 22-story skyscraper.
Yeah. The Bold project?
Yep.
Well, this is a project that actually could have been done by right. The zoning existed for this project to go up without even going through a public process. But because they were seeking tax increment financing, we brought it through a public process. We allowed folks to come into public chambers and share their thoughts on this project, and we used that feedback and worked with the developer to help make public improvements that make the downtown Haymarket area even better. And I'm excited about what this means for the growth of our housing stock downtown. I'm excited for when this is built, how it will provide more people living downtown to shop in our businesses and support our local restaurants. This is a great project for Lincoln. It does represent change. It is a significant and tall building, but we are building big things in Lincoln. There are cranes on our skyline, and that is how we will continue to grow economic opportunity for everyone.
Suzanne, were you in favor of the project for that location maybe?
You know, I am in favor of the growth of private business, and I see this as a partnership between the city and private business. There are many voices speaking into this issue, and I know I've heard from people on all different sides of this issue. I do believe that growth is hard and that change is difficult, and that does make a challenge for some people, and bringing the community together to listen to those concerns and solving those together, I think, is of utmost priority. And but all in all, I believe in growth of the city. This is great economic development and an opportunity for people to live downtown.
And maybe just a quick follow-up and then 15-second response. So the concerns, some of the Haymarket business owners of having that construction going on for quite a lengthy time, do you think everybody kind of met in the middle as far as agreeing this is how it's going to work? Is everybody, not everybody's happy, but at least shaking hands on it?
Well, we came up with innovative solutions working with the public and the private sector. There will be valet parking available to help relieve any of those parking concerns. So that's just an example of the kind of lengths we're going to try to address what we hear from the community.
You agree, Suzanne?
And the valet parking was unique, and then the lane closures, I know especially during football season or crowded times downtown, that's a concern as well. But it sounds like there is still some unsettling, but I do believe it's important that we move forward with it.
John and Rex asked, what are your plans to help those who are homeless? And Suzanne, we'll start with you.
You know, homelessness is a problem that has plagued society for probably ever. And the city's responsibility, I believe, is to make sure that we have good access to mental health treatment, to addiction treatment, that we treat people with dignity and respect. That goes both ways, to the person who's homeless and to the business owner. I do believe it's not the most dignified thing to leave people on the sidewalk. I do believe providing an opportunity for them to go somewhere where there's a roof over their head, making sure that we make more investments in mental health treatment and a treatment for addiction, which is usually somewhere the problem here. I believe that's the biggest issue here, and making sure that people are accessing those and able to access those in a timely manner.
Larry, in 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm proud of the way our community has worked together to functionally eliminate veterans' homelessness. Of course, we set our sights on helping address the issue of chronic homelessness. We're going to be using over $4 million of our federal funds to create a new permanent supportive shelter that provides wraparound services and a safe, clean place to live with access to trained professionals who can support individuals who have been living on the street. And then, of course, our Affordable Housing Action Plan, by targeting those between 30% and 80% of area median income, we're targeting those who are at most risk of falling into homelessness. And by working to keep them housed, we will help prevent those numbers of homeless from growing.
This was briefly mentioned a little bit earlier, but I think it's worth diving into a little bit more. Sean asked, mental health care costs are expensive. How will you specifically increase and or support more community options for mental health care with lower costs? And Larry, you go first on this one with a 1 minute response.
Social services and mental health services are largely the purview of Lancaster County and our board there. However, we combine our efforts and our limited resources in something called the Joint Budget Committee, and we have investments and partnerships with organizations like Cedars and Centerpoint to help direct public dollars to promote mental health services for our community members. And right now at our Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department, we're doing a community health survey, and we are looking to prioritize in partnership with all kinds of providers across the community, invest in behavioral health services. We know that this is important preventive work. It's worthy of our investment, and we are committed to making those investments.
Suzanne?
Sure. One of the things that we can do to help expand access to mental health is also ensuring and partnering with our school systems to make sure that students, whether they're college students, pre-college students, are focusing on that as a profession. One of the problems with mental health is not just the low cost of a clinic, but having those who are trained, who are able to offer the services. That has been an issue across our state, across the country, actually. And I would partner and make sure that we're keeping that as in the forefront, that we're exposing our students to the huge need there, and then also rewarding those students by making sure we have openings in clinics so that they can offer that service broader to the community.
Danielle asked, how do you plan on working with LGBTQ plus citizens of Lincoln to make the city welcome to all? And Suzanne, you go first with a 1-minute response.
Actually, I would work with any student. I am not a label person. I'm also not an exclusive person. So whether they're LGBTQ or any other title that they would want to use, I would be willing to work with anyone who's a good fit for a job, a good fit for any position, whether that would be in my administration or any other city job. But I would present an opportunity that's open and welcoming and inclusive of all people.
Leirion, 1 minute.
If that's true, then why did you sign the petition that says it's okay for employers to fire people because they're gay? Please be informed of the facts. My administration, we launched a One Lincoln initiative to build a culture of belonging so that all of our residents have opportunities to reach their full human potential, experience equal opportunity, and true belonging in Lincoln. And we are working with our Commission on Women and Gender, doing surveys of the community about their top priorities. We are working to have more diversity, equity, inclusion work at the City of Lincoln itself. We've hired a DEI manager. We are working to do trainings about how to be a more inclusive employer and making it easier to apply for work at the city. And I have signed executive orders that prevent discrimination on the basis of gender and gender identity for our city employees. I've testified at the state legislature for bills that would provide protections for our LGBTQ members of our community, legislation that my opponent has not supported.
Suzanne, I assume you would want a rebuttal?
I would, and I would say the reason I signed that petition is because the methodology was inappropriate, and forcing businesses and individuals to obey something that they may or may not agree with is an inappropriate role in the city. I believe what the city should be about is city business and not driving a social public agenda.
Leirion?
Supporting the equal rights of all our community members and the dignity of our LGBTQ community members is absolutely the role of the city.
All right, let's move on. Lincoln is preparing for a second water source. Leirion, why do you think your Water 2.0 plan is the best option?
Thank you. This is an issue I've been calling attention to since my days on the council. Securing a second source of water for our community is important to support the economic growth and environmental resilience of Lincoln, our children and grandchildren. And so I convened a Mayor's Water Source Advisory Council last summer, diverse community stakeholders led and guided by technical experts and engineers to help evaluate all of our alternatives and create criteria on which to choose where we go for our second water source. We have safe, clean drinking water for the next 2 decades, but to get to a second source, we have to start now, building out the infrastructure, and I was happy to accept their recommendation that we build a new water treatment plant on the Missouri River, new well fields on the Missouri River. That will help us be strong in the face of extreme weather impacts. That will help us grow our city, and I'm excited to continue this work when I'm reelected as your mayor.
Suzanne, do you agree with the mayor's plan? Is it the best option? Is there something you would change?
You know, I actually do think it's a very good option. It is a very expensive option. However, it's a long-term view, and it's very important to our economic development. I would look into cost sharing with other communities that would be accessible to. But again, I believe it's vital for our future and for the economic development along that line and in different parts of Lincoln so that we have a redundant water source.
All right, next question. How do you plan to attract and retain young workers in Lincoln? And that includes the trade industry. Suzanne, you get to go first.
Again, I'll go back to what I've said a few other times, and that is exposing young people in all of the resources areas that we have available to us. Private school, public school, colleges, universities, all those resources, and making sure they understand the opportunities available to them in our city, whether that's with the trades, which often only take a 2-year degree and can come with tuition reimbursement or with automatic tuition payment and apprenticeship, but exposing those students early on to what the opportunities are in our community, I believe, is vital.
Leirion, attracting and retaining young workers.
Young workers are looking to live in dynamic places that offer a lot in terms of arts and culture, and that are places that respect the rights of everyone, and that afford them plentiful economic opportunities. So to do this, to attract and retain our young workers, we continue to invest in our infrastructure and grow housing that supports the growth of the city and the growth of our local businesses. And we look at catalyst projects that have the opportunity to transform the landscape of Lincoln. Just think about what the arena has done for Lincoln. I was proud to vote on that project as a planning commissioner, and I'm proud to be lifting up new projects like a downtown music district that will build on our robust local music scene, and a new park for downtown on the West Haymarket. These are exciting projects that will make this a more attractive place for our workers. And we've invested in career pathways like welding in the trades, as well as others in early childhood and manufacturing and nursing, to help make sure that there are plentiful opportunities in high demand fields for our local talent.
Obviously, a goal with a debate like this, educate voters and answer questions. And I think one of the questions out there, Suzanne's campaign ran an ad saying that you, Leirion, that you don't live in Lincoln, that you live in Ashland. You said the ad was misleading and to pull it. So Leirion, let's get this out in the open for voters. Where do you live?
I live in the Near South neighborhood where I've lived for the past 20 years, and I didn't say it was misleading. I said it was a lie, and I called upon my opponent to denounce the lie, which she has refused to do. And I suspect it has something to do with believing that misinformation and scaring people through terrible commercials is the way that she's going to win in the absence of a viable platform. I'm proud to live in the Near South. My husband and I have worked to support our neighborhood association. It was some of the ways we first got involved in the community. And from there, that led to a turn on the Planning Commission, 6 years on the City Council, and now the past 4 as your mayor. I am so proud to call Lincoln home. And again, making this city the best possible home for your family and mine is the vision and focus of my public service.
Suzanne, your response?
Sure, and first I'll correct that that's not from my campaign. So that was not run by, and actually I think it's a diversion from what we're all about here. What this campaign and what my campaign has been about has been city business, building a better, safer, more affordable Lincoln, and not about where the mayor lives. That has not been a topic of my campaign at all. It was run by other groups.
Outside sources?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
If it's not your campaign, then why won't you denounce the lie?
Because it is not my campaign. And that is also not, it's a diversion from what my campaign is about.
Let's move on here. Congressman Floyd made the news recently saying that downtown Lincoln Post Office should be moved from the Haymarket, that is prime real estate that could be better used maybe to fit the atmosphere of the historic Haymarket. Suzanne, do you agree that maybe we should move it? And if so, where?
I don't have a location for where it should move. I do support the idea of it moving so that it's, I know it's, the business that takes place there has condensed quite a bit from what it used to be. And so the possibility of it being moved, I think, would be beneficial, so we can replace that with something that is more focused on economic development, more focused on entertainment, because of the area it's in.
Leirion?
Yes, I do agree with Congressman Flood, and I've enjoyed our discussions on this topic as we've sought a location for a new convention center for Lincoln's downtown. This post office has been considered as a potential site, but as my discussions with Congressman Flood, we've agreed that it is a difficult thing to move. It's going to take a lot of the federal level. He's committed to doing that long-term work. In the meantime, we'll be working together to continue to identify the best site, resources needed to put together a convention center that will help boost our local economy and create economic opportunity here in Lincoln.
Well, this hour has been flying by, hasn't it? And it's time for our 2-minute closing statements. Again, to remind our viewers that we flipped a coin with both campaigns. And Suzanne, you're going to get to go first here. The 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to come and let you know what my views are. I do believe that there is a clear choice, a very large difference, a stark difference between myself and my opponent. I do believe that it's important that voters understand that I have a vision that will unite the city of Lincoln, that it's all about city business, things that we all agree on. That is good roads, public safety, making sure that you can go outside and feel comfortable at night, whether you're in the rail yard or whether you're in Northwest Lincoln, all across our city. It's also very important that we spur on economic development, that we make it easy to do business with the city of Lincoln, that we say, how can we help you? Whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, you should be able to come to our city. Our doors are open, and we're going to help your business succeed. Again, I am the candidate that law enforcement is standing with because I've stood with them. My opponent has not stood with them. She has not supported them. She did not support them during the unrest that was downtown. She did not support a fallen officer's family in their time of need. There is a reason that they have endorsed my campaign. And as a wife and a mother and a grandmother, I will commit 100% of my time to making this city the best, safest, most affordable city it can be.
Leirion, you get the final 2 minutes.
All right. There's a lot on the line in this election. You're right. The contrast between my opponent's priorities and my priorities is stark. I am committed to continuing to invest in our public safety teams as they protect our neighborhoods and families, to invest in essential infrastructure and our streets that grow economic opportunity for all, and to continue to support our parks and trails and libraries that make our quality of life in Lincoln so special. And my record proves it. My opponent's record demonstrates that she is willing to give up local control of our city to the state. She's willing to put guns in the hands of individuals without common sense background checks and safety training. She's willing to defund our public schools. She's willing to deny our LGBTQ friends and neighbors their full human rights. And she's repeatedly voted to deny women access to important healthcare services. Her priorities are not our shared priorities. Her priorities are too extreme for Lincoln. They are what are going to drive away young people from this city and contribute to the brain drain. Even her campaign, funded by Pete Ricketts, is too extreme. For months, they've been pounding us with ads that paint a scary picture, a picture of Lincoln that is both unrecognizable and untrue. The truth is, Lincoln's on the right track, continuing to earn top rankings nationally for public safety, for economic recovery, and for our high quality of life. Now is not the time to roll the dice and put the city in the hands of someone with no city experience and who's willing to trash our city in order to get elected. Lincoln, you deserve better. I am asking for your vote on May 2nd so that together we can continue to achieve our shared priorities and continue together to make Lincoln an even better place to call home.
All right, that is going to wrap up our 1 hour debate here. I do want to thank both of the candidates for taking time on this Sunday to be down here. And I've talked to a couple of political insiders, and they're pretty sure this is the first time a mayoral debate for Lincoln has been televised. So we should all be proud of this, making history tonight. So I do want to thank the audience here. We have some people. You know what? Let's give them a round of applause, right? It's not easy to get up there and just answer questions that are thrown at you like that, because again, we did not share the questions with them ahead of time. I do want to thank the journalism department here at UNL. Yeah, give them a round of applause. And also AARP, thank you for helping us. And of course, our viewers there at home, watching on Channel 8 or online, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to vote on May 2nd here in Lincoln. Good night.
Thank you for watching the Lincoln Mayoral Debate, sponsored by AARP Nebraska. Be sure to vote on Tuesday, May 2nd.